So, picture this. March 24th, 2015. An airplane, an Airbus A320, just vanishes from radar over the French Alps. Now, the first thought, of course, is a tragic accident. But the truth, the real story uncovered from the plane's black boxes, was so much more disturbing. This is the absolutely chilling story of Germanwings Flight 9525. So listen to this. These were the last words the captain heard from his co-pilot, Andreas Lubitz, right before he stepped out of the cockpit. Hopefully, we'll see. At the time, it probably sounded like just a strange, maybe awkward reply, but in hindsight, it's completely bone-chilling. It was a terrifying sign of what was to come.
All right, so let's set the scene. The day started out like any other. I mean, it was a clear morning, and Flight 9525 was just getting ready for a standard, totally normal flight to Germany.
The plane takes off right on schedule at 10 a.m. By 10:27, it's at its cruising altitude of 38,000 feet. Everything is going perfectly, just another day at the office, you know? And then, just 3 minutes later, the captain makes a routine decision that would end up changing everything.
And we have to remember who was on that plane. There were 150 people. It was an incredible mix of lives. 16 German high school students coming home from an exchange trip, probably buzzing with stories. 2 famous opera singers were on board, plus tourists, business people, just a whole cross-section of humanity from 18 different countries. And up in the cockpit, you had 2 men. The captain, Patrick Sonnenheimer, was 34, a seasoned pro with over 6,000 flight hours. Next to him was the first officer, Andreas Lubitz. He was younger, 27, and pretty new, with just over 600 hours of experience. So they're cruising along, and the captain mentions to Lubitz that he didn't get a chance to use the restroom back in Barcelona. Lubitz's reply was calm, just, "No problem, you can go whenever you want." So the captain left the cockpit, leaving his first officer in sole command of the aircraft. And in that moment, the routine flight turned into a descent into terror. With the captain gone, the aircraft started to fall out of the sky. Literally seconds after that cockpit door closed, somebody inside changed the autopilot's target altitude from 38,000 feet all the way down to just 100 feet. The plane began dropping at a shocking 3,000 feet per minute. To the passengers, it must have felt like hitting a sudden violent air pocket. As the plane plummeted past 25,000 feet, what started as confusion in the cabin would have turned to outright fear. People would be gripping their seats, completely unaware of the deliberate act unfolding just a few feet away from them. By 10:38 a.m., air traffic control was frantically trying to get in touch. The plane was way below where it should be, dropping past 10,000 feet, and there was just silence. No response at all from the cockpit. Meanwhile, Captain Sondenheimer returns to find the cockpit door locked. He rings the bell, then he starts banging, shouting, "Andreas, open the door!" He puts in the emergency access code, but it's overridden from inside. In a final desperate act, he grabs a crash axe and starts trying to break the door down. The horrible irony is that this reinforced door, designed after 9/11 to prevent hijackings, was now being used to lock everyone out. But his efforts were useless. At 10:41 a.m., the plane, with all 150 people on board, slammed into a mountainside. The impact was catastrophic. The aircraft just disintegrated. There were no survivors. In the aftermath, the whole world was asking one question: why? The answer was buried in the wreckage, inside the flight's 2 black boxes. So these devices are absolutely crucial in any investigation. You have the cockpit voice recorder, the CVR, which records every sound and conversation, and then you have the flight data recorder, or FDR, which tracks everything the plane is doing: altitude, speed, control inputs. Together, they were going to tell the story of Flight 9525's final minutes. And what the voice recorder revealed was just horrifying. From outside the cockpit, you could hear total chaos. The captain's frantic shouts, the loud metallic banging of the axe, automated alarms blaring. But from inside the cockpit, only one sound: calm, steady breathing. And then, the flight data recorder gave them the final, undeniable proof. It showed that after the captain left, the altitude setting was manually and purposefully changed from 38,000 feet all the way down to 100. This was no accident. It was a deliberate act. So the investigation now knew what happened, but they still had to figure out the why. And to do that, they had to dig into the past of the man at the controls, Andreas Lubitz. What investigators found was a long-hidden history of severe mental illness.
Lubitz had actually dropped out of his pilot training back in 2008 because of a major depressive episode and suicidal thoughts. He eventually got recertified, but with a special note on his license. In the months before the crash, his condition got much worse. He developed psychosomatic symptoms, becoming terrified that he was going blind. He saw doctor after doctor who gave him sick notes declaring him unfit to fly, but he just tore them up and hid them from his employer.
And the evidence showed this was all premeditated. It was overwhelming. His internet search history was filled with terms like cockpit doors and suicide methods. And here's the most chilling part. On the flight to Barcelona that very same morning, he'd actually rehearsed the descent, briefly setting the autopilot to 100 feet while he was alone. A practice run, hidden in plain sight.
And perhaps the most revealing clue came from something he once told his girlfriend. He said, "One day I will do something that will change the whole system, and then all will know my name and remember it." It seems he saw this horrific act as some kind of twisted path to infamy.
Now, this tragedy was the result of one man's actions, but it exposed some critical flaws in the aviation system itself. In the wake of this disaster, the industry was forced to make some pretty significant changes to make sure this could never happen again.
And from this tragedy, real change did happen. Those strict medical privacy laws that stopped doctors from alerting the airline, they were re-examined, giving doctors a clear duty to report pilots who are a public safety risk. The two-person rule was adopted almost everywhere, ensuring a pilot is never left alone in the cockpit. And new support programs were created to help pilots seek help for mental health without fearing it will end their career.
Ultimately, this whole disaster forced the entire aviation industry, and really the world, to confront this incredibly difficult dilemma: the conflict between an individual's right to medical privacy and the absolute non-negotiable need for passenger safety.
You know, the changes made after Germanwings 9525 were designed to stop this specific event from repeating, but it leaves all of us with a much broader and more profound question. In any high-stakes job, where other people's lives are in your hands, how do we balance the secrets we all keep with the safety we all expect? Where exactly should we draw that line?